Hello and welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be vibe coding with the Ralph Wiggum plugin. So this is an AI loop technique. This is a plugin for Claude Code that's been gaining a ton of attention lately. And I actually had a chance to use it yesterday on stream for day 117 of vibe coding an app until I make $1 million. And in this video, I'm going to be taking what I learned yesterday, showing you guys a little bit about how to install it, how to use it, what my thoughts are on it, and then we're also going to be using Claude Code, and we're actually going to be vibe coding with the Ralph Wiggum plugin, and I'm going to show you a couple different tasks that we're going to give to it, and I'm going to show you how it works. So with that being said, the first thing I want to show you guys is if you go to, I'm going to include all of this in the description, but if you go to the link, it's awesomeclaude.ai/Ralph Wiggum. This is going to give you a lot of information that you need to know about the plugin, but I'll also include a lot of information in the description. In the description, you're also going to see a link to the fastest growing vibe coding community on the internet right now, BridgeMind. BridgeMind is taking off. It's the fastest growing community, and if you haven't already joined this community, make sure you do so. I also have a like goal of 200 likes on this video, so if you haven't already liked the video, please do so and make sure you subscribe and turn on post notifications. But with that being said, let's get right into actually vibe coding with Ralph Wiggum. So if we check this out, Ralph Wiggum, it's an AI loop technique. So this is an official Claude Code plugin for iterative, self-referential AI development loops, ship code overnight with persistent iteration. So pretty much how this works is this is the quick start. This is how you install it. So you just run plugin install Ralph Loop Claude plugins official. So this is now an official Claude plugin. You can actually also, if you go over to Claude and you actually search plugins, I've already downloaded mine, but you can actually, let's just search it here. So let's go as Ralph. You can literally see that Ralph Wiggum is now a plugin that you can just toggle on. So you can either run that or you can just install it through the UI there. Very nice that Claude Code has this now out of the box. But what people are using this for, and I'll kind of break it down with this loop. So if I zoom in here, I want to show you how this works. So to start a loop, you run this command. So it's Ralph loop, and then you do your prompt, and then there are two big commands. So there are two command options. There's max iterations, and then there's completion promise. And these are very important. And one thing that I will say is when I was using it yesterday on stream, I actually ran into some syntax issues where I was basically not putting in the correct command. So you need to make sure that you do put in the command correctly. And the biggest benefit of Ralph Wiggum, which a lot of people are talking about, is because you can put in these commands like max iterations, and because you can put in a command like completion promise, what happens is you can give the Ralph loop your prompt, and then you set the max iterations, you set the completion promise, and then it's literally just going to loop over and over and over again until that task is completed, until that completion promise equals what you set it to. Which could be complete or done, etc. It's very important that you actually set a completion promise. Yesterday on stream, I did not set one, and it basically just did an infinite loop. So that was an issue that I found yesterday. You have to make sure that you are setting this properly. But one big thing is now with the Ralph plugin, prompts are even more important, because basically what happens is on each of those loops, it's resubmitting that prompt. So if you have a crappy prompt, it's going to make it even that much more of a crappy task, because it's going to keep looping through your bad prompt. So they have in here, hey, make sure you're writing best practices. And what I've found, and what I'm going to show you in a second, is you can even drop in this link and you can paste it into Claude here, and you can have Claude actually help you write the prompt to then submit to another Claude Code session. So let's do just that. I want you to review the Ralph Wiggum plugin, and then I want you to review this project. And I'm going to drop in BridgeMind UI. So I actually right now, I have some merge issues with one of my branches. So I have a dev branch, and then I just had some merge conflicts. So right here you can see can't automatically merge. So I'm trying to merge from this merge branch into dev. And right now the issue that I'm having is that there are merge issues, right? So there's conflicts that we need to fix. And I'm going to have a Ralph loop actually do this. So I need you to review the screenshot and notice that I'm trying to merge the merge branch into the dev branch, and right now there are merge conflicts. So what I need you to do is I need you to write a perfectly crafted Ralph Wiggum prompt that I can just copy and paste that will run a loop with 5 iterations to make sure that we properly push our changes and fix any merge conflicts and push our changes from merge branch to dev branch. So we're going to submit that. And basically what it's going to do is it's going to write the prompt for us to then submit into the Ralph Wiggum loop. We're gonna enact that in a second, but let's also go to another branch here. And as you guys know, yesterday we actually forked Open Code, and we're now working on a new project called Bridge Code. This is our vibe coding tool that I'm still deciding. I probably will end up open sourcing this, but yesterday I actually used a Ralph Wiggum plugin, and we now with Bridge Code we have a couple different commands like remove slop, vibe, ship, and then I also built in, so we have a vibe mode, the build mode's native out of Open Code, the plan mode also is, but we also created a diagram mode and a ship mode. So one cool thing that I want to show you with Bridge Code just briefly is, for example, if I drop in my CloudFormation repo and I change to, let's just do diagram mode, output a diagram of my AWS infrastructure. So what this is going to do is it's going to automatically be able to have that system prompt to be able to create a robust diagram. So we were able to create this with a Ralph Wiggum loop. So that's one thing when we were testing it on stream yesterday, we were using Ralph Wiggum to actually fork Open Code and then build on top of Open Code some additional features that we are going to use while we're vibe coding. So that's going to work. Let's come back to that in a second. But something else that I did is I actually did use a Ralph Wiggum loop to build my AWS infrastructure yesterday. So as you can see here, this is just a summary of a CloudFormation. This is a CloudFormation project, and I used Ralph Wiggum to be able to create the CloudFormation project. And I did get to the point where I was able to test it yesterday, and the only thing that even failed was the thing that I didn't use Ralph Wiggum to actually build. So if you see here, deploy cognito, I actually did not use a Ralph Wiggum for this particular template when deploying, and that was the only one that failed. So I found that interesting that Ralph Wiggum was able to do all of these other tasks. You can see that they deployed successfully, except deploy cognito, which is the one that I didn't use it for. So that was interesting. I think it can be very useful, but let's go back over to Warp and see if it actually has. So here's our diagram. So for example, Bridge Code, let's just zoom out a little bit. So here is our AWS cloud infrastructure, and you can see it outputted a nice diagram for us. So rather than me having to, tell it exactly what I want, we have this diagram mode so I can easily understand infrastructure or different parts of my code base just by turning on that diagram mode. So that was something that Ralph Wiggum was able to create. But let's go back over to this Claude Code instance, and it looks like this is now ready. So you can see here is the prompt that it's given us. So this is the resolution prompt, and at the end here, the most important part just is that max iterations is incredibly important, as well as just that prompt is really important. So let's actually just drop it into this and see if we get it going on the first try. I will say that I have run into issues with Ralph Wiggum right here. This is a continued issue that I actually continue to have. So look at this, command failed for pattern this, and I continue to have these issues, and I don't know why. You just have to make sure that you get that basically the syntax right. Review the issues that I got, the error that I got when submitting this prompt. Why did this fail? Try again. So I don't know what keeps causing this. I continue to get that that issue there. I don't know if it's just something that I'm doing on my end when I'm pasting in the prompt, but I have gotten this issue several times. Like, I wish that there was a little bit more flexibility, but you have to make sure that when you are creating your Ralph Wiggum prompt and you're using it, it has to have like the perfect syntax. And if I do a slash command, what you guys are going to see is like, do you see how Ralph Wiggum, let's just zoom in real quick. So Ralph loop, this is the one to actually create the Ralph loop, right? So I can click this. Hold on here. So that's going to give me an error, but watch this. So I can do Ralph loop here, and if I just do tab, what you're going to see is, let me actually move this up to a new window. So it gives you the completion. So it's going to be prompt, maxed iterations, and then completion promise with text. So that it kind of gives you like, hey, this is what it expects. So that's nice. It's just that, hey, whenever you're using Ralph Wiggum, you are going to have to put a little bit more effort into actually drafting your loop. Now, let's see here. It did give us another, some content to paste in here. So let's just try this out. Let's go back over here, and let's see if we can get this to work. Let's drop it in. And it looks like that one actually did go through. So on the second iteration there, we were able to fix the whatever the error was that we got, and now it's going to be able to run this loop. So this is using Ralph Wiggum, and you can see your branch is up to date with origin merge. And what happens is Ralph Wiggum is incredibly good when you're doing like large tasks that are going to like span more than one context window. So one of the biggest issues of Opus 4.5 is the fact that it only has a 200,000 context window, which is it's very small when you compare with some of the other frontier models. Obviously, Gemini models pretty much all are over 1 million at this point, and GPT models are like 400,000, and then Opus 4.5 is only 200,000. So it will get, I mean, that's definitely like something that that it's going to make a difference, right? So another thing that I want to do is, so we did fork Open Code, but I now want to actually give Bridge Code, like here, let's just launch Bridge Code again by running Bridge Code, and I want to give Bridge Code like its own custom look. You know, we forked Open Code, we're building custom features on top of Open Code that will improve our vibe coding workflow. This product will either be open sourced or released publicly soon, but let's give it just a little bit of a different customized look, right? I want to do that. So this would be something that would be very good for a Ralph Wiggum loop because it's essentially a massive refactor, right? So let's just add Bridge Code here, and I'm going to give this my prompt. I need you to review the Bridge Code directory, and I want you to note that this is a fork of Open Code that we are now customizing and rebranding and building into our own custom tool. Because of this, I want to make distinct styling changes that keep the professional look of Open Code, but change it to customize it to Bridge Code so that users know that Bridge Code is different from Open Code. Right now, it's basically, since we forked it, it has the exact same styling as Open Code. When I say I want a styling change, I'm not talking about a theming change. I'm talking about an actual physical look. So for example, when I actually launch Bridge Code, you know, that home screen should look different. It shouldn't look the exact same as does Open Code. It shouldn't look like it looks right now. So without changing too much, I want you to be able to create custom updates that gives Bridge Code its own look and feel. I want you to create a Ralph loop for this with a prompt and a max iterations of 10 iterations with a completion promise of complete. Okay, so again, we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to give it another task. And the thing is during this video, I mean, we're already 11 minutes into the video, and what you guys are seeing is that, like, hey, if I even go back here to this prompt, it looks like merge is complete here. So Ralph Wiggum was able to complete this for us. So let's actually check this out here. Let's go over here and let's see. Let's just launch this and see, hey, was this actually able to merge? Let's go to pull requests and see, hey, was this able to merge? Let's just do compare. Okay, so that's master. Let's go dev, and yep, so look at that. So it's dev is up to date with all commits from merge. So that Ralph Wiggum loop was able to one-shot any merge conflicts that we had, which is great because, hey, now we don't need to worry about that, right? We don't have any more merge conflicts. So perfect. Ralph Wiggum was able to do that for us, which is really great. So you can see here, like, how does this actually work, right? If we go here, you can see that at the very end, what ends a Ralph Wiggum loop is what you set as that last parameter, right? Like, hey, let's just put in this, let's do tab, it's the completion promise. So if you set the completion promise, it can have a number of max iterations, but if it gets to that completion promise before the number of max iterations, it's going to end. So I don't actually know how many iterations it did, but one thing to note is it is very, very important that you actually set, first of all, max iterations, and it's also important that you set a completion promise. Those are not, you can just enter a prompt, but the thing is it will run indefinitely if you do not submit those. I tried this yesterday, and I actually ran into a big problem with it. So just note that is important. Also, there are a couple of different commands with Ralph Wiggum. So there is Ralph loop cancel Ralph. So this will cancel any active Ralph loop. So that one's important. I believe there's one more. Yep. So there's Ralph loop help, which is just explain Ralph loop plugin and available commands. So really, these are your important commands: Ralph loop and then cancel Ralph. So let's go back over here and see if this one is done. So this is analyzing. And the thing about this is that Ralph Wiggum, a lot of people are overhyping it. A lot of people are underhyping it. I think that the approach that I always take is, hey, let's try it out and let's just give it a fair shot. Let's integrate it into our normal vibe coding workflow and let's see what it actually is good at. And my thoughts on Ralph Wiggum so far is it is nice. For example, if you do create a custom prompt like this one, it will allow you to be able to run long-running tasks without you having to be involved. So for example, you know, Ralph Wiggum will allow you to loop indefinitely or for a set number of iterations or until a task has reached a specific completion point. And that means that if you can literally, like if I open up Warp here, what I can do is I can launch Claude, right? And I could launch, 5 Claude instances before going to bed. And what I would recommend is I would actually recommend doing what we're doing here, where you're using Claude Code to be able to actually write the prompt for you, right? So you can see here that now this is, everything that's going to happen in this prompt, right? It's telling us what's going to happen. And you can see its max iterations is 10, and then the completion promise is complete. And here is our loop. So you can see that what it created is the task is to create a distinctive visual styling for bridge code to differentiate it from open code fork. And then it gives you all the, the prompt that's going to be needed for that. So I'm happy with this because what it allows you to do is allows you to create a task, and then it allows you to loop indefinitely without having to be super involved, right? So I'm going to drop in this prompt, and what this is going to do is this is going to allow me to now, literally just, basically walk away, and then I'm going to be able to come back to this, and it's going to, have completed this task. And this is a very large running task, which is a pretty large refactor, right? So this is great because rather than me having to, do one thing, get to the end of a context window, reset the context window, maybe even reprompt it because it wasn't able to continue. Like, for example, what typically will happen is you'll create a README file with tasks, or you'll have a subset number of tasks that you're working on, and you'll work with it in just a normal Claude window, and it will work on specific phases, right? So you can see there's a to-do list here, right? Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and then there's going to be a build verification at the end, which is perfect. And the thing is if you were using this in a normal Claude Code window, what would happen is it would maybe get through phase 1 or phase 2, and then it may stop because it would reach its context limit, and then it would come back to you and say, hey, do you want me to continue, or what do you think about this so far? Do you want me to proceed with phase 3? And the thing that Ralph Wiggum will allow you to do is instead it's going to basically be able to work through all of these phases and loop indefinitely until it reaches the number of max iterations, or it reaches that completion promise, right? So that's the benefit of it. And a lot of people are probably wondering, like, hey, how does it affect your usage limits? So even like this session here, right? 9% used so far of my 5-hour session. And I was using it a lot yesterday to do some pretty long running tasks, and I'm only at 43%. And I think yesterday I started the day maybe at like 30%. So I used about probably like 10 to 12%, which is pretty normal. So instead of Ralph Wiggum being like some super token intensive task, what I find is it kind of just works a little bit around the issue that you're having with context windows, and it allows you to be able to give it some long running prompts and then walk away and be able to come back, and it's going to be able to actually get through all of it, which is very, very nice. I think that is important. Something to note is like, hey, that's a problem that this is now addressing. Now, there are some people out there that are overhyping this. There are drawbacks to it. I think that, yesterday on stream, some people were having some different opinions. Some people aren't fans, some people are. But I think, yeah, again, like, let's just approach it and say, hey, what this allows you to do is, for example, for this, it does allow you to loop indefinitely. It will allow you to do long-running tasks, and it does allow you to work a little bit out of the context window. Now, if we go back over here, how did this one do? I mean, this one literally nailed our styling issue, our merge conflict that we had, and this one's now working on our styling issue. And for example, it's like, hey, you can use Ralph Wiggum to be able to run these long-running tasks where if you wanted to submit, 5 prompts before you went to bed that were really well thought out, you could then come back and you could literally refactor your entire code base from, TypeScript to Rust, in one night without having to do anything or watch, right? So I think that there is a use case for this. I think that a lot of people, like I said, are overhyping it. They even say, hey, the critical skill is writing good prompts. Here are some ready-to-use templates that they have. I think that there's a lot of hype on this right now, but you can even see, hey, you can set that max iterations to anything that you want. But here's one thing that they say is overnight batch processing. So queue up work to run while you sleep is literally one thing that it says, which is definitely a benefit of it. So look at this. It literally will have that. That's insane. So chain multiple Ralph loops for complex projects. So multi-phase development is also another thing that it says. So core, so you can chain them. Excuse me. So you could do phase 1, phase 2, and then phase 3. That's interesting. I wonder how you do the chaining. So these are the advanced patterns, and then you can combining get work trees. So create isolated work trees for parallel development. So get work tree, add, and then project feature, B feature, and then terminal off feature, CD project, and then run that. Okay. So, I mean, I'm pretty impressed with this plugin. I don't think it's going to be like super game changing, but I do think that there is a use case for it in your workflow. I'm impressed. I think that you can definitely use it to be able to do like overnight work for batching because, for example, I mean, what this is enabling people to do is, hey, if I wanted this to complete, right? I mean, if we go back over here to this here, I could give it this super large prompt, and I would advise that you, again, my workflow there was I basically gave a prompt to Claude Code. You can see my initial prompt here, and then I had Claude Code do the reviews. You can see it reviewed these files in this project, and then it was able to create the prompt with for Ralph Loop, which I'm very impressed with. You can see that it gave it this, and then it's able to change these things, and then I'm able to just pass that off to Ralph Loop, and it's able to give it a shot. Now I do think that this one is running. It looks like this is just about done. So I do want to actually see if it was able to accomplish what we wanted. If we run bridge code, is it going to throw a bunch of errors, or is it going to be styled differently? I mean, you can see some styling differences. Hold on here. Not a ton, to be honest, which is probably one issue. It's saying that it's done. But I think a lot of what it did was just like update some small things. So we're definitely going to want to like review this. And I think that's the important thing about a Ralph loop, is that it is for like super long running tasks, right? So the big thing here is, hey, if you're going to do a massive refactor, or if you want to build, let's say, a massive test suite, right? Like this would be another example that we could use Ralph loop for. Great work. I now want you to review this project. And let's drop in, let's just drop in our BridgeMind API, right? And let's say I want you to review the existing test suite, and I want you to create a prompt for a Ralph loop that will create a more robust test suite that tests more edge cases and that covers more of our project. Create the Ralph loop prompt for this like you did with the other two prompts. So this, another use case for Ralph Wiggum, where, hey, for example, this is a long-running task, right? And rather than me just entering this baseline prompt into a Claude Code window that basically says, hey, I want you to review the existing test suite, and I want you to create a more robust test suite, what you're doing is you're basically taking a initial prompt that's maybe a little bit short, you're passing that into a Claude Code instance and saying, hey, now you want you to actually write the Ralph Wiggum prompt for this. So it's going to be able to take your initial prompt, make it more robust, make it more specific. You can see it's exploring all of these files. It's going to be able to create a more robust system prompt that you can then pass into a Ralph Wiggum loop that's going to be able to work for a long running duration and be able to loop until you get your desired outcome, right? So I think that there's a use case for it. I'm not going to overhype it. I think that that's the use case right there. There's some people that are like, oh, it's going to 100x your workflow. That's not really true. I think that there is a use case for it. And I'm excited to see what we're able to build with it. I probably will be using it on stream today, but definitely interesting to see what it's able to do here, as well as what it was able to do yesterday, with our cloud infrastructure, as well as, just being able to solve like this merge conflict here. That's nice. It was also able to even just build out this initial bridge code work. If we do bridge code, this was all built on a Ralph Wiggum loop. So it's like, hey, I think that there is definitely a use case for it. Again, you don't want to overhype this stuff, but you do want to take a look at it, and you do want to say, hey, how could I potentially integrate this into my workflow? So I would check it out. There's going to be some information in the description below about, how to get it set up, basically the syntax, but I'm also going to include the link to this page because it is important. Like, for example, even in these Claude Code instances, I just passed in this link, and I just said, I want you to review this and then help me to create the Ralph Wiggum prompt, right? And that is very, very helpful to do. So if you are using Ralph Wiggum, I would advise that you kind of have that workflow where you have an initial prompt, you pass it into Claude Code creates the prompt for Ralph Wiggum, and then you paste that into a fresh Claude Code instance. Definitely a really interesting plugin. I'm excited to see the development and see what people create with this. But with that being said, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, and join the Discord if you haven't already, and I will see you guys in the future.